Welcome back to another episode of Hot Mess Espresso. We have a nurse practitioner and men's mental health coach. We have Patrick Casey on the podcast today. Hello.
Hey Heather, thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks for dealing with all the technical issues when we first tried this.
Yeah. Better luck this time, right?
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Like I lit all the sage, like hopefully this just works out.
Cleared all the bad stuff out of the room.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
So I guess let's just like dive right into it. Like nurse practitioning, that's a choice of a field. So
hmm
why? What got you into that?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So, to back up, I got in recovery from drugs and alcohol at age 19, where I was, for the last probably year or so, I was shooting up heroin, using IV heroin. Parents came home, found me, passed out on the couch, needle, belt wrapped around my arm, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was at home babysitting my two younger sisters when they found me that way, and I had been trying for like 6 months to try to find a way to ask for help, and couldn't really get
Mm-hmm.
the courage. Kind of thinking like, do I ask them, or do I tell them like, I'm hooked on pain pills, or the drinking's more out of hand than you realize? Like I couldn't figure it out, so they kind of just found me in the way that they found me. So I go off to rehab, do that whole thing, get sober, so now I'm like 20, 21, working like construction jobs, working at PetSmart, working at a car wash. Like, what the hell am I going to do? Because my only experience with education, I did really good in high school somehow, even though I barely went to class after like my sophomore year. I still graduated pretty well. I was a really good cheater, I guess. So I always got friends with people that did that made good grades and stuff. But I am very smart as well. I don't want to cut myself short. So I did well in high school, and then I did 1 year of college at Augusta State University in Georgia, and I did absolutely terrible because that was like at the very end of my using, right, doing I was like shooting up heroin in the parking lot of the
Mm-hmm.
campus before going to class. So like, and the funny thing is becoming a nurse practitioner and, being a nurse first, because that's the prerequisite, was like, I hated science classes. I didn't like chemistry. I didn't like biology. I didn't like dissecting things. Like I was like got the heebie jeebies out of that kind of stuff. I don't like killing animals and stuff, let alone if they're already
Mm-hmm.
dead. I don't like cutting them open. So for me to get into the healthcare and nursing field was like very much out of nowhere, but also for me to get sober from drugs and alcohol was kind of also out of nowhere. So it kind of fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of like asking people, like, what do you do for work? What do you do for work? How do you do that? Do you like that? What kind of education is involved with that? And a friend of mine, his name's Shannon, he had been a nurse practitioner, and I only knew a little bit about it because like I bugged him one time, like, hey man, I need antibiotics for something, or hey, can you write me a prescription for this or that when I had been sick because I found out what he was. So the way he explained it was like, I'm kind of in between a doctor and a nurse, so I can write prescriptions, but I don't have to do like the bedside stuff, like the butt wiping and the bedside care and stuff. But you do have to do that if you want to become a nurse practitioner.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I don't want to go to nursing school. Like that's for girls, man. Like again, this was like in the early 2000s. I'm like, I didn't know there was like a lot of male nurses. That was like starting to become more and more of a thing. And he's like, well, just go take a biology class, take an anatomy class, see if you like it. And if nothing else, you're going to be in class with like a whole bunch of girls. Like that'll be fun, right? I'm
There you
like,
go.
hey, you sold me on it. Let's go. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And my sober mentor had told me like, everything we do in life, it's we're gonna be able to use that at some point in our life. So don't think of this as like I have to go be a nurse, until I'm 65 years old or something like that. Like just go
Mm-hmm.
try it out, see if you like it. I took an anatomy and physiology class. I really loved it. I really liked the way the body worked, but I knew I didn't want to go to med school and spend all that time and commitment. So I was like, well, I'll go be a nurse. So I became a nurse and then eventually became a nurse practitioner, which is another long story. But that was just kind of like the thing I wanted to do because I wanted to have some responsibilities and like authority and like be able to like make decisions for people's care. I didn't want to, you know, I don't want to say just be a nurse. I didn't want to just be a nurse and follow orders. I wanted to also like make some of those decisions and have that responsibility. And for me, being, a former heroin addict and stuff, to now have a DEA license and a number and like, my own practice and I can prescribe drugs and do all this stuff. It's like crazy because like I'm the person I would have like wanted to hang out with a long time ago because I would have been like trying to make, get prescriptions off of me. So it's a really cool full circle kind of thing. And, ultimately it's just like really attractive that I could help people and make money. Like I could do both things. I could make a pretty good career living and also help people and change their life. And, it really depends, Heather, like what area you want to work in. Like,
Right.
and I knew working as a nurse in the ER that I did not want to work in the hospital when I became a nurse practitioner. I wanted to do something different. And it's a whole nother long story, but basically I ended up kind of accidentally falling into working in detox and rehabs, mental health. So that's what I do now as a nurse practitioner. I've been doing it going on 7+ years now.
Now, how did you make that jump from the medical field to now you're a coach?
Yeah, so that was kind of a whole thing that happened a couple years ago where I more or less hit a pretty bad bottom in my sobriety at about 20 years sober, where I hit this really deep emotional bottom. And my fiance now, who was my girlfriend, was working with a coach. I didn't know what a coach was. I didn't know, very much about podcasts and self-help type of stuff. I'd done some like self-help books, but she was working with this coach who'd been around about 10+ years doing this kind of work with mental health and spirituality and energy and vibration and, law of attraction type of stuff, like really cool stuff I didn't know I would be into, but I actually am into. So my girlfriend invited me out to this live event in California. She said, "Hey, will you come with me? I don't really know anybody and I feel a little, awkward and stuff. Like, would you come with me, support me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I'm open minded. I'm sure I'll get something cool out of it, right? I'll try
Right.
a lot of stuff, especially if it's self help involved or personal development involved. And I was there,
Hmm.
and we spent the whole weekend doing all these exercises and stuff. And there's about 40 people, and I only know Caitlin's the only person I know. And we did this thing at the end on Sunday where we pass a microphone around and talk about our experience for the weekend. And I just kind of broke down in front of these people that I don't even know, and just started crying, looking in my girlfriend Caitlin's eyes, and just said, "I want to love me like you love me. I want to look at myself the way that you look at me. And I don't know why I'm not there right now. I have
Hmm.
all these accolades and material outside things that, you could want, and everybody that loves me to death. So why am I not giving that to myself? How come I haven't gotten there yet?" And come to find out eventually, which I found out was, I had some childhood core stuff that I thought I'd worked on. I've done therapy, I took antidepressants, I did this and that. So, but it wasn't fixed. It wasn't there. I wasn't done yet. So this was just like another level. So I asked this lady, JJ Flazanes, if she would coach me. Well, actually, that's not exactly what happened. What happened was she came up to me and said, "You know what? This doesn't have to end like this. You don't have to take this, fly back across the country to Florida, and then go back to your life. Like, I can help you. And even if it's not me, I know there's other people that can help you." And she talked to my heart, and I just felt it in my chest. And I said, "Okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it costs, how that works. I'm on the other side of the country, but let's do it." And so I signed up for a 6-month course with her and a group of people, about 4 other people, and it just changed my life. And so I was like in the middle of it going, damn, like, I want to be able to help some other guys like me, especially men like me, who
Hmm.
may not even have substance abuse problems. Because I've been spending the last 20+ years helping people in substance abuse. What about other guys who don't have drug and alcohol addictions? Maybe they're addicted to control or addicted to work or just addicted to relationships, all kinds of stuff. Like maybe I can help them if they're not feeling like, you know, life's just not going well or somebody's on their ass about stuff. And,
Right.
things just like kind of aren't clicking. So anyway, I know it's a long answer for you, but I just wanted to kind of like fill in the blanks of like, that's how that transition happens. It's not an overnight thing. It wasn't quick. It wasn't something I read in a book. It's something I had to live and experience and then go, shit, maybe I can cast a wider net and help some other guys. So it's cool.
Yeah, no, it is. So when you started coaching, like what were some um what were some trends you noticed? And then also what were some things that you just did not expect when it came to coaching?
Resistance, I came across a lot of resistance, which, it's different because, when it comes to drug and alcohol addiction, most people are just, their bottom is more obvious, I guess I should
Hmm.
say. So like when you hit a bottom, it's obvious, right? Like you need help from drugs and alcohol. I'm dying, like help me. When it comes to coaching, they may not be in that position. Again, it might be, I've had a lot of people get referred to me through a girlfriend of theirs or a wife or a woman maybe I worked with or a friend of a friend of a friend who's like, "Hey, there's this guy, Patrick, go talk to this guy. You really need some help."
Hmm.
And I don't know if you had a chance to watch the course video I told you about a while ago.
I did, and I got some questions.
Cool, cool. So we'll go into that. But that was the whole thing, which was like, how do you help somebody who doesn't want help or is not ready to have help? And so you know, I want to say I only want to work with people who want help, but that's not true because I also want to work with people who maybe need a little extra, light shined on their life to see like that they actually need help. So if you're kind of like sniffing around what's going on here, you probably need a little bit of help. And so it's about kind of figuring out to what extent are you like willing to commit? And so that is a financial commitment, because if you're like me, I hold money in high importance, right? So like, I'm not just going to give my money away. So if I'm going to spend money on something, I want to get my return on that. So like, if I spend money on a gym or on personal training, even though I'm tired as hell at the end of the day, I don't want to go. I've been working all day. I know that I've had this financial commitment, so I'm going to go. So if I'm paying a coach, I'm going to be more invested in it. Just like when I was in college, I was more invested in college as an adult, paying for it out of my pocket than when my parents paid for that first year of college. So
No,
I
1,000%.
think, yeah, I think trying to help people work through that resistance and figuring out that they need to help. And then also with guys, it's helping them, which again try to talk about in my course. Don't know if I did a good enough job about it, but getting vulnerable, getting real, like getting authentic,
Mhm.
crying, tapping into some of the feminine stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like not being the macho guy. Like that's not working for you. If that's not working for you, let's try this other stuff.
Well, I think too, like, especially with it being like the macho man, like as a woman myself, it doesn't have to be like macho. Like there are so many little things that men can do to be, I guess, more dominant, like and more manly, and they don't realize that those are the things that women are looking for. Like
Yeah,
guide them through a crowd in public, like, make plans, make dinner plans. Oh
there
my
you go.
God.
Yep,
Make dinner plans. Like you
yep.
have no idea how much that will just poof, that kind of, so it's those little things. It doesn't have to be like, you know, alpha male kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just those little things that make somebody go, "Oh, okay." Like that's a man, you know?
Yeah, it's and I learned the hard way, like I do a lot of stuff in life. So I was married before. We were together for 10 years, married for 4. I got divorced back in 2016, and I vowed like I'm not going to repeat these mistakes.
Right.
I'm not doing this again. And I started reading some books and literature on relationships and on feminine energy, on masculine energy, the polarities, and how we need a little bit of both, or maybe a
Mhm.
lot of both. It's not healthy to be all one or all the other, and that's how we attract the mates we have, and that's how people are turned off by us or attracted to us, right? And so it is
100%.
about that. It's about, sometimes it is, hey, babe, what do you want to have for dinner? I don't know what I want to have. What do you want to have? But a lot of times it's, hey, I want to have such and such. You want to come with me? It's inviting you to come with me, or it's making that decision, or saying, hey, I made plans for us. I got tickets to the show this weekend. Put on something nice. We're going to go. And she really gets excited. She's like, well, which one are we going to go to? I'm like, you'll see when we get there. Like that's the whole
Right.
point. So it's keep that surprise. And I did that on our second date. I took
Mhm.
I took her to a movie, and I knew she was really big into Disney, and this was when Beauty and the Beast came out, and we
Ugh,
went
love
we
that
went to
movie.
Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, and so we're sitting there in the seats, and she doesn't know what theater. I made sure that like she didn't see the name and she didn't see the tickets and all that. And we're sitting there, and then the movie come on. She looked over at me. She was like, "Great job, you did awesome." And
Oh.
this was only our second date, so like that's the stuff I might have done in my first relationship, in my first marriage, but then stopped, got stale, got stagnant, got complacent, got lazy, right? And I'm sure you've experienced that too, right, Heather? So it's about keeping that. So we've been together 8 years now, and certainly not perfect, but I do a lot of that stuff still. It still keep it fresh. We do a lot of hobbies and things together, and yeah, she's
Mhm.
she's just basically my best friend, but it's like treating her like a lover more than a friend,
Right.
because friends, you don't want to be sleeping with your friend all the time. Like you want to be with your lover. So it's about kind of like changing that up a little bit and having some polarity, and being honest and authentic and being vulnerable,
Yeah, and
which
I
which is okay.
I think what people don't realize, especially in dating this day and age, is there's a lot of give and take. Like it's not always on, the man to like lead, but when he does lead, that's going to make, like for me personally, if you're leading, that's going to make me want to pour into you and do something for you. Like, I noticed you saw a hoodie that you didn't buy, so I'm going to get that for you. Like, I noticed you had a rough day, so I got dinner, no problem. Like, it's a give and take. Like I feel like it leans one way or the other a little too far, and we've got to find that sweet spot.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Balance, right? Which is what we all want in life with anything and everything. It's going from one extreme to the other extreme. It's like that line that we cross is that balance that we see for like 3 seconds as we cross over it. And we
Exactly.
swing like a pendulum. So it's really important to be authentic, to
Mhm.
not keep things inside, which is what I always did, which was repress things. And
Mhm.
then I start having that silent scorn and taking it out on the other person, but they
Mhm.
had nothing to do with it. And it's like, and now if I get a little grumpy or something, I'll tell her, I hope I wasn't too grumpy. I'm sorry, the day, this, that, and the other, was I, and she's like, what are you talking about? Because I'm kind of like extra sensitive to that because I don't want to
Right.
do that again. I don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Right. I think when you've done that before, you're incredibly self-aware and you don't realize that, like, yeah, it's good to keep yourself in check 1,000%. But there's some times where I like my ex, I'd be like, I'm so sorry I snapped. And he was like, you didn't snap. And I'm like, I felt like I did. Like, I'm sorry for it. And he's like, you're fine. Like, the hell? That kind of thing. But to kind of like dive into your YouTube video,
Yeah,
because that was very informative. I watched the whole thing.
cool.
And there was so much that I was just like, absolutely, yes, 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 yes. But like, I guess what I feel like I need a little bit of clarity on, and if I need clarity on, like other people may need
Of
clarity on,
course, yeah.
there was like a part, and I'm going to refer to my notes right
Hmm.
here because I take notes. But there was one part that really stood out when you were talking about how like trying to get through to your person, find something like, because you were like, cop to your own shit in the relationship, which 1,000%, like, if you, it's usually not a one-way street. But then there was something that you said that you were like, find something that you're also like doing wrong, even if you feel like you didn't do anything wrong, find something. So my thing is and I need a little clarity on it. What if you have been putting the effort in and it really is like the other person? And then also, how can this, like, because I feel like it's a very fine line, like not slide into the territory of it's on the female partner or, the female in general to fix things. Like, she has to find something wrong so that he feels like he's not being attacked. But like, sometimes it is just kind of like an accountability thing. So like, how do you ride that line without sliding into it's somehow going to be put on the woman to fix it or solve it or something like that? Are you picking up what
Yeah,
I'm putting down?
yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to say because, like you said, I mean, maybe what I was saying can't be 100% across the board. Maybe the partner, the woman, if it will, in this example, has done absolutely everything perfect to the book, and I can't say like where have I been at fault. So I think it's important if that's the case, if I'm thinking about this correctly, if that's the case, is to start with some compliments
Mm-hmm.
for the guy. Start with some compliments, appreciations maybe like babe, I appreciate you work so hard. I appreciate, you put food on the table for the kids and for us. And then, I really would like to spend more time with you and not, have you work all these hours and then come home and then you just fall asleep on the couch. But
Mm-hmm.
you think you're being a good dad and husband because you're materialistically providing everything for us. But, I'm not feeling nurtured. I'm not being loved. The kids don't have their dad around. Or if it's just a single relationship, there's no kids involved, like what you're kind of talking about. I think figuring out, where are we on the victim triangle? Like are we the victim? Are we the rescuer? Are we the persecutor? Like, where are we
Mm-hmm.
falling in that? And that's kind of when there's drama going on. We're, I think, generally going to be in one of those three places. And if you're like me, the way I grew up in my childhood, I was floating around through all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
I was a victim a lot. I was a persecutor a lot. I was a rescuer a lot. And so when I'm in a relationship with somebody, it's important, I guess, for me to figure out, am I pushing too much on this person? Am I not pushing enough? Am I maybe being too lackadaisical? Kind of like, what's my energy underneath what I'm doing, I guess, is my purpose. If I am doing everything perfectly,
Yeah.
what's the energy underneath? What's the motivation underneath doing that? Is it like, so I could shove it in his face and say, see all this really good stuff I'm doing and you're not doing any of it? Like,
Right.
what's kind of my motivation, I guess, with that? And I guess having a friend, like I'm sure you have, to bounce that off of, like, hey, look, I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing myself doing this, and this. What do you think I'm missing? Or what do you think I'm doing too much or not enough of that he's not picking up on it? And then again, like you've experienced, I've experienced, we've all experienced. Sometimes we're just not meant to be with the other person. We can try and beat our heads against the wall. My
Yeah.
my coach, she started her podcast to save her marriage, and that didn't work. But then what happened? She manifested the best relationship she's ever had because she had that podcast. Now it worked out. It just didn't work out with the person she meant for that to work out with.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was learning my mistakes. And so I guess I would have to have more kind of like exact examples of what, of like what you're saying, like,
Right.
it's hard to just kind of pontificate or to give you a blanket answer, I guess, because I don't want to like put everybody in a little box. I know it's not
Right.
really like answering your question exactly, but
Yeah.
it's like where am I maybe doing everything really really good, but how do I help him see that I'm doing everything really good, and maybe he's just not there, and we're just on these two different
Yeah.
energy levels, and it's not going to friggin' work. Like, right? Like if one person's growing, the other one's not, you're going to outgrow that person. And eventually you're not going to want to be with them anyways because they're not there. And it's too frustrating and too difficult and too tiresome. And you want more for yourself anyways. And right, like the law of gravity, it's easier to be pulled down than it is to pick somebody up.
No, 1,000%. Like, and like the reason I even like that like stuck with me is because like I'm an oldest daughter. So for me, it was always, you're responsible for your younger siblings, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for that. So, and just the way I grew up, it was just kind of a like it was just, you don't want to jump into like that toxic territory of, well, you didn't fix me. And it's like, it's not my job to fix you kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I was like, that's gonna be a good one that like we need to kind of clarify on and discuss. But what kind of feedback have you gotten from that video, like on both sides of the spectrum, like men and women?
I've gotten a lot of good feedback actually. It's caused a lot of people to say, I want to learn, I want to dive into more of this masculine and feminine stuff because I really thought
Hmm.
I knew what that meant, but maybe I don't really have as much of a grasp. And then other people like questions like you that are like, well, I feel like I'm doing a lot of this stuff, but my son just won't come work with you, or he just won't go to see a therapist, or my husband's just like, I don't feel like I'm nagging him. I'm inviting him. I'm doing what you talked about and what other people have talked about. I'm inviting him to like, hey, honey, let's go for a walk for a half hour after dinner and just kind of get him kind of moving a little bit. Because aside from going to work, he doesn't exercise. He's not taking care of himself. He's let himself go. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback from both sides. I haven't really, maybe people are just being nice. I don't know, but I haven't gotten anybody who want to like necessarily debate me or fight me on a lot of stuff. Which again, this isn't original stuff that I just came up with, like sitting down one day. Like this is stuff I read about, learned about, listened to about, and I referenced some of those books. I think in the video too
Yes, you do.
about David Data, like a lot of good stuff about masculinity and femininity. Um, so it's really helpful to go into that. And like what you were saying, I'm the oldest of three as well, and so I'm not saying my mom did this or ever said this, but for whatever reason, I always felt the need to make everything okay. So like I had
Hmm.
to like kind of gauge the temperature of the room in the morning when I would get up, and like what kind of mood is mom in today? How is dad feeling today? Like how do I need to behave? Can I be my usual class clown crazy self? Do I need to be quiet? Can I be loud and rambunctious? So it's kind of like figuring out. So I grew up for whatever reason feeling like I was responsible for everybody's feelings and how
Yep.
everybody was doing. And so I can take that into interactions today. So I have to be very hyper focused on that and
Yes.
vigilant that like, oh, you know what? I'm not responsible for everybody having a good time just because I invited them over to hang out and watch a football game or something. I'm not
Hmm.
responsible. I don't have to make sure everybody's okay. I'm just here. I just provided a place to come hang out and socialize. So it's figuring that stuff out too, and like figuring out with my fiance and being like, okay, I don't have to fix her. She can have a rough day, come home, and I don't need to like start nailing her with like how she should fix all her problems. I just say, you want me to listen, don't you? Yeah, okay, I'll just listen. All right. If you want feedback, let me know, or I'll just listen and be empathetic about what's going on, because as men, especially, we just want to fix, and as being the oldest child, we just want to fix. So it's like a double whammy there with wanting to just kind of fix everybody, fix everything all the time. And look what I do for work, and look what I do for recovery. Like I'm always trying to fix, 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 and it's like maybe some people need to actually go through their pain. That's a
Hmm.
novel concept. Maybe they need to like feel their feelings and not have Patrick come run and rescue them right away. So that's been really cool too. And I did this really big thing since we last talked. Actually,
Yeah.
I did this dialogue conversation with my mom that my coach gave me this printout. That's kind of like a scripted dialogue where you reflect to each other. And I
Yes,
talked
those are the
about my
best.
childhood. Yeah, and this was way overdue, and my mom and I had these big breakthroughs. And like, my mom's sharing her stuff and she starts crying. And like that little part of me is like, can I, no, mom, you don't need to cry. And I just like, no. Cry. Yes, mom, go ahead. It's okay to cry. Here's a tissue. Like, I'm not going to hug you and console you yet. We'll do that at the end. I'm going to let you feel your feelings and cry and just feel it out and go through it. Because it's all that repressed stuff that makes us sick and feel like crap when we repress and shove it way down.
Yeah, because like my dad and I have had multiple hard conversations over the years. And like to kind of circle back to something you were saying on like, you know, he's at work, he thinks he's providing, but he's not like mentally there for the kids. Like that was the biggest thing that I think my dad has realized over time. He was like, I thought that I was doing the right thing because I was providing, the roof over your head. I was providing the financial security. I was providing all of that. He's like, but now that I'm realizing it, I wasn't there for you guys. And that's what you actually needed. And since then, we've had a lot of really like raw, open communication that's been phenomenal. But
Awesome.
it's just like that, like being able to sit down, and it took a really long time for him to be in a position where he could hear it,
Mm-hmm.
because he was very like in that bubble of I did the best I could. And I was like, we're not saying you didn't do the best you could. We're saying like there were things that were lacking and that needs to be acknowledged, kind of thing. Like we're not beating on you. Like we get it. We're adults now. We get that part. But like, so we had like all these conversations about it and it was great. But like to also kind of circle back to your listening thing, that one, I literally was like, I'm watching the video and I'm clapping because I'm like, that is the thing. Men just want to jump in and fix. And I've
Yeah.
had to over the years tell guy friends, like boyfriends, all of that. I'm like, I just need a bitch right now. I
Yeah.
just need a bitch.
It's hard. It's hard
I'm
for us.
open to logic and reason tomorrow, but today
Yeah.
we're going to be dramatic. And I'm just going to need you to nod along because
I'm
I
going
will
to join
figure
in
it
and
out
say,
as I go.
that bitch did what? She did what to
Yeah.
you?
And it's when you find someone that can do that, it's really refreshing because you can almost see sometimes that they're just like itching to be like, okay, well, you can do this. And it's like, I don't want to hear it right now. I will hear it tomorrow. I will hear it in 10 minutes. But right now I need to get this off my chest before I literally combust. And I actually do take it out on you. So if you let me vent for now, it's going to work much better for the rest of the evening.
Yeah. Selfishly, it's good for me.
Right. So yeah, that's like, those
Yeah.
are big things that I got from that.
Good.
No, I think my like fault when it comes to listening is it's a natural gift for being a podcast host, but it's also kind of a curse in relationships because I just want to dive into the problem. Like let's go into the psyche of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you feeling that way? Do you think it's this because of this, and this? And also it's like 8 years of therapy, so that doesn't help either. And it's just like I have to sit back and be like, we're not asking those questions today. Shut up. Like just nod. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Your boss was a dick. I'm so sorry. Like you just shut up.
Yeah. It's
So it
hard
goes both ways.
it's hard when you can see like somebody's getting triggered and you want to be like, well, why do you think that triggered you? Like, where do you think that's really
Mm-hmm.
coming from? Well, it's this person cut me off in traffic. It's like, but what's really going on? Like what, and that's our jobs, even as people in recovery, helping other people get clean and sober. It's like helping them like really like focus in and hone in on what's really going on. Why are you really thinking about drinking? You've been sober for
Mm,
6 months. Like you're not thinking about drinking because your girlfriend, yelled at you or your boss like treated you like crap. Like what is that triggering in you? And that's the stuff I learned with my coach was like my core wounds. What makes me get triggered and then how my emotional and physical responses are to that. Like that's, and guess what? That all comes from the program. And I had my first 7 or 8 years of my life
mm-hmm.
that permeates into everything in my life today, all my interactions.
Now, when it comes to kind of like coaching recovery, what are some things with like the recovery avenues that were helpful to you and maybe like helpful to someone struggling? Just because like obviously AA is not for everyone kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So like what are some things that have helped you? Because obviously like it's a lifelong process to be recovering from this. It's, some days are better than others, but what are some things that help keep you on task and may help other people if they're, struggling with their own recovery?
The biggest thing was getting out of that isolation and that feeling of being alone. And
Mm,
so it was, which I help people with coaching too. Again, even if it's not substance abuse related, because some people are just hermit crabs and isolate. Why? Because they're fearful. What are they afraid of? What are people going
mm-hmm.
to think about me? What are they going to say? I have to interact. I don't like the way I talk or the way my voice sounds or whatever. So it's about For me, it was about that first time in my life not feeling alone, not feeling like I was doing this on my own. That this was a group effort. We always say it takes a village to raise an idiot. It took a couple villages to help get somebody like me sober at 19 years old. It took a whole village. So I got involved in like all the conferences, conventions, all the meetup things, all the groups, all the sober dances, the New Year's Eve sober parties, the Halloween stuff, bingo night, softball teams, basketball. It was anything and everything that was recovery related. I was in it. Now I was scared. I was terrified probably more than half the time, but it was just this perseverance, which I've had my entire life. And maybe I get some of that from my parents with like having really good work ethics, but it's like, I'm just going to push through this and do this despite what my head is telling me. I'm going to do this. And then I keep doing it and it doesn't kill me. And I do it again and it doesn't kill me. And I do it again and it doesn't kill me. And so it gets easier every time. And sometimes I put my foot in my mouth. I embarrass myself. I say dumb shit in front of people. And I'm like, oh,
We
that
all
was
do.
stupid as hell. Oh, man. And then I come around and I go, well, nobody killed me. I didn't die from that. So it's not a big deal. So the biggest thing in recovery, especially early on, was getting involved and helping out. And, you know, uh, back then, wasn't a whole lot of like cell phone stuff in 2002, 2003, but it was like, answering phone calls, driving people to recovery events, picking them up, dropping them off. Um, my job had to be getting sober. I mean, ultimately, like my job
Right.
had to be getting sober. Now it was easy for me. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I didn't have any commitments or responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was fortunate compared to some people. I have a cousin that's getting sober right now. He's doing really, really good. He's got like 9 months sober. But man, poor guy, he
It's
got
amazing.
divorced like 3 days after he decided to get sober. He's got two young kids, but he's kicking ass and doing really well. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, dude, like you have so much more on your plate than I did when I was in the same place as you getting sober. Like you're doing phenomenal. But he's not alone. He's doing nothing alone. And he says it all
Right.
the time, like nothing I've done has been on my own. And it was about, ultimately having some kind of spirituality, some kind of something
Right.
other than myself, whatever the hell that could be, to
Right.
to kind of like give me that hope and belief. And it was all the people I hung out with in recovery that were, kind of like shining examples of what to do. And some people were examples of what not to do. Right? Like that's
There's
that's the
always
thing
that too.
too. You got both ends of the spectrum. So it's figuring out where do I want to fall on that. Which when I was in high school, I mean, I would hang out with all the different cliques because I was a chameleon. I had to like
Mm-hmm.
blend in with everybody. So it was like in recovery, which group do I want to hang out with? So,
Yeah.
and we call it hanging out with the winners. So I want to hang out with the people that get sober and die sober, but also the ones that are really happy doing it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get clean and sober to be a miserable prick. Like I got sober to like enjoy my life and have fun. And at 19, I didn't think that was possible. I was like, there's no way you can have fun. You guys are full of shit. But then I
Yep.
go on like a bowling night or I go to like a bingo night. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is a great time. So all those first experiences, especially that first year of sobriety, was just lit me up. It was just awesome. Like I could do all these things, go to a concert. I got sober in Atlanta, and there's tons of music in Atlanta. And
Yes.
I went to so many concerts that I always wanted to go to. Saw so many bands I never got to see when I was getting fucked up. And I'm experiencing all this stuff sober. We're laughing at people that are drunk, and you smell the weed in the concert. But like I'm with
Mm-hmm.
other sober people. I have an army around me that's helping protect me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like because something you said just stood out to me. Do you feel like being involved and like, doing the whole driving people does that give you like an extra sense of like accountability to stay on that path because everyone's kind of around you being like,
Yeah, I mean you're being relied on. You're being useful. And
mm-hmm,
if you're like me, I was a useless POS before I got clean. Like nobody could rely on me. You could rely on me to steal from you and treat you like shit and stab you in the back. You could rely on me to steal something from you and then help you look for it. Because I wasn't going to tell you I was the one that stole it. So like now I'm reliable. Now I'm dependable. Now I'm useful. So yeah, that helps. And it's all about doing esteemable things. So this one night I was really just, I don't know, I was like 6, 8, 9 months sober, 10 months sober, and I was just like out of my mind, like having one of those depressed kind of days. Nothing's kind of like working out well. And I was driving. I was in Marietta, Georgia, and I was driving down the road, and I drive by this. I think it was a Food Lion or a Buy Low grocery store, and I'm driving by, and it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I see these shopping carts everywhere, scattered all about. For whatever reason, my car just automatically turned into that parking lot, and I get out of the car, and it hits me, and I'm like, I'm gonna put these shopping carts all together. So I collected all these shopping carts like a crazy person. I probably looked like at midnight if you drove by. I looked like a
Right.
crazy person. I gather up all these shopping carts and I push them to the front door of the entrance, line them up. I get in my car, and I had this overwhelming sense of like, you're a fucking rock star. Like I just had this feeling of like, wow, that's what it feels like to be useful. That's what it feels like to do esteemable things. You know, that's what it
Mm-hmm.
feels like to do something for somebody else. And they're not, and I'm not going to be around in the morning for somebody to thank me. Like that's the really good stuff when you help somebody out and do something really nice for somebody without getting the pat on the back and the accolades and the applause. And like
Yeah.
I held on to that for a long time before I ever told anybody because I knew the more people I told, the less special it was going to be to me. But now it's become a thing that I've told quite a bit of people that have come back and told me how that helped them and that they've done similar things when they were in really bad times. So it's about doing esteemable things, is what I'm saying, Heather. Like I do esteemable things. Guess what? I feel better. My self esteem goes up. I start acting like a dickhead again and doing things mischievous and manipulating like I used to do before I got clean and sober. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
My self esteem starts going down, back down. I quit looking people in the eyes when I'm in public. I quit saying hello to people. I'm just blinders on doing my thing. When I start having that better self esteem, I look strangers in the eye. I have these like really weird random conversations with people that just start up conversations with me standing in line at the grocery store. They start telling me about their life, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? But I enjoy it. I appreciate that, and it's like I know it's because I'm giving off that energy. Like you can talk to me. I'm approachable.
Yeah. Yeah. I like what you're saying just sounds like at the end of the day, it's that sense of purpose, that sense of you're doing something that isn't disappointing other people. And that's like
And
the biggest.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That is so huge. That's in any kind of recovery, whether it's like traditional recovery or even like mental health recovery when you're even if you realize that like you're approaching a situation a lot different than you would have like a year ago, you're just like, "Oh my god. This is great." It's so weird because you're like, "What just happened?" But it's that growth, it's that purpose, it's.
So I'm going to cut you off real quick.
No, you're good.
My coach says, she says, you know, you've healed with something when you are different in the same situation. So when you're in the when you're in a situation that like, wow, before this I would have reacted this way, but this time I reacted this other way. You've had some growth and some healing in that area.
It's like the best. It's the weirdest but the best feeling because you're like, I did it, but then you're like, I did it. Like what do I do now? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like where do we go from here?
On to the next one because there's always something else, right?
Exactly. Speaking of on to the next, what is next for you?
I would like to continue growing myself, growing my business. I'm going to continue working at the detox and treatment centers. I'm actually working with a couple of people locally here in South Florida where I'm going to start going to some of the drug and alcohol and actually not just drug and alcohol because I just got hit up from a mental health facility. They don't do drug and alcohol, just mental health with going into those places and running groups and facilitating some of my material and my work that I've learned that I'm going to
Yeah.
pass on to them and then maybe when they leave those places they'll hit me up and want to do some individual work. I'd like to eventually get into group coaching, you know, where I can have
Mm-hmm.
like a group of like 5, 6, 8 people do like a 3 month long course or 6 month long course, which is again what I was introduced to with this whole coaching thing in the first place. So that's what I'm really looking forward to because I think it's more efficient, right? So it's more
Yeah.
efficient to be able to help multiple people at the same time rather than one at a time. But I love the one-on-one. I love the vulnerability. I love breaking down stuff, especially people that have denial and they're just like arms crossed, kind of you're not getting through this chain, you know, and kind of busting through that chain in a loving way. Sometimes you have to push, but
Yeah.
sometimes in a loving way and busting through and then seeing the light come on in their eyes and just being like, wow. You know, I've had so many people come back and say that thing you said that one time, which I don't even remember saying or doing, like that impacted me so much. I'm like, I get it. Cause I remember the people in my life that have done that and they had no idea, probably never even met me or talked to me in person, but they said something really profound that just at that right time, maybe I heard it 10 other times, but it just clicked.
Yep.
So,
No, 1,000%. So where can we find you?
so I have a website newly vamped website, patrickcaseyjr.com. So patrickcaseyjr.com. And on there, I've got my courses, the one that you watched. I have another one on there. I have a calendar on there if you want to set up like a free consultation, 15, 20 minutes to talk, see if it's a good fit for you. And then I have my YouTube channel as well, where, podcasts such as, I'll have this one added on there when this one's out and published.
Sweet.
So, I have like 14 or so that are on there right now that are published, and I have a couple more coming out. So just continue putting the content out there. And I'm not a big social media fan. I don't like doing all that stuff, but I'm trying to kind of grin and bear it like everything else,
Yep.
and do that stuff. But that's why, again, I'm excited about doing some of this local stuff I'm going to be doing with the groups. That's going to be the hands-on, face-to-face type of stuff. And then I have Instagram at Patrick Casey Jr.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, and we'll have everything linked in the episode description for all y'all. But yeah, Patrick, thank
Awesome.
you so much for coming on and rescheduling and
Yes.
dealing with, the lack of internet.
Yes, this worked out better this time.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Heather.